Good. We did refill our water. Cheers. Mm-hmm. My straw gleet. All right, we're on page 137. You're welcome. Yes, thank you. Such was Mary's way. Nuno did not know that. When he chose Mary to be his lady. We're doing a full read on the peacemaker who went to war. We're on page 137. It is a good book written in 1963, I think. John Matthias Haffert, 1963. Look at that. I give myself whatever accolades I can, you know. All right. When he chose Mary to be his lady and chose the scapular to be his token from her that he was to wear and make glorious by bravery and self-sacrifice out of his love for her, he little guessed that this simple turn of all his intentions, directing them to God through Mary, would lead to his greatness, to his country's independence, and to sainthood for himself. He never dreamed, as he played at war with his brothers, made different from them only in that his lady was the Queen of Heaven instead of a lady in the court of Lisbon, that he would be hailed centuries later as the savior of his country and raised to the altars of the Catholic Church. Centuries later, a man named Grignon de Montfort was to give the explanation. As God chose to come to the world through Mary, so he wills that the world should go back through Mary. Yes, I always say that behind great men and women are many more great men and women. That's correct. Could it be any other way? Hardly had the Carmelites taken possession. We already read this part. Yeah, I think we're in about the same vicinity here. Hardly had the Carmelites taken possession of the Basilica, overlooking Lisbon, then Nuno divided all the goods which yet remained into 3 parts. One of these was set aside for the poor, the second was for his grandchildren, and the third, a far smaller part than the other 2, was for his own necessary sustenance. His jewels and his arms he had already distributed among his knights and equerries. His lands, with royal permission, he had willed to those who had cultivated them for him. Towards the end of July in 1422, when the existence of the community in the new covenant had been assured, and the erection of a new Carmelite province in Lisbon had been obtained from the Pope, Nuno presented himself at the convent, you're right, at the convent. As usual, there was a great deal of excitement over his coming, and the porter hurried away to get the prior. Father, Nuno said, when Father Gomez had come, I would very much like your permission to live here, in a little cell near the porter's lodge, and to be present at the community exercises. I know I'm not worthy to join the order, and if I did join, the enemies of Portugal would know that I could no longer lead my troops, and the fear of my name being removed, they might attack before we reach national maturity. But I want to be as close to Our Lady as possible, and would prefer the room to my castle. I have some goods to be distributed to the poor, and I would very much like to do it from here. It has all come from Our Lady, and it is to Our Lady that they may come to receive it." Father Gomez listened with wide eyes. When Nuno passed through the streets, crowds gathered. Right now, there were well over 100 admirers who had followed the great knight's cavalcade up the mountain to get a glimpse of him as he came out of the convent. If such a great man were to remain with the community, the crowds would be constant, the solitude of the friars would be destroyed, there would be a constant source of distraction. Nuno read his thoughts. "After I am here a while, Father, the people will become accustomed to me. When I live in a castle and travel with the troops, I am a national figure. But after I have lived here a while, without property or national distinction, I will soon lose my mystery to them and will cause far less comment in the streets of Lisbon than the current favorite at the arena." Whatever the prior's misgivings, he agreed to let Nuno come. Nuno changed his serious expression to a smile with, "I'm usually up here to see how the workmen are coming. Now I won't have to come up any more." Nuno went out and dismissed his men, smilingly told the crowd that the Grand Constable of Portugal was leaving for Paradise, a rather good exchange, and personally carried the few belongings that he had brought with him to the small room near the porter's lodge. During the year that followed, he divided his time between prayer in his cell, or at the feet of the Madonna of the Scapular in the chapel, and supervision of the construction. To aid in the latter, he had a temporary tower built on the esplanade of the mountain to the south of the apse. The tower was an observatory from which he could see all the building's operations and go down to any spot where special supervision or a helping hand might be needed. He often carried building materials himself or aided in the placing of a stone. From the same tower, Nuno could see the entire city laying beneath him in far-flung panorama. The white houses glittered under the intensely blue Portuguese sky, tufted with its usual feathery clouds. Farther off shone the blue of the sea, and in the distance rolled the blending hues of the mountains of Arapaco. Nuno recalled all the memories of his sieges, his assaults, the revolution, against the turmoil that reappeared so vividly before him. He the more rejoiced in the sweetness of his peaceful refuge, and smiled happily on a busy Lisbon harbor, heart of a new and free nation, dedicated to Mary, with a new code of morals in the court and in the country, with new shrines to God, with respect and devotion to our Lord in the Blessed Eucharist. Nuno was happy. Only one thing troubled him. He was a lost soul. He was neither in the world nor was he in religion. He longed with all his being to fly off to some distant land where no one knew him, and to spend the rest of his days alone with God. Yet he knew that his enemies feared him more than they feared the armies of Portugal. His enemies thought that he was aided by God and was invincible. He was with the troops. Often battles were never fought because the enemy troops knew that he was there. If he left Portugal while the country was not well integrated and self-sufficient, either the Moors or the Castilians or both would fall upon the country at once. He was sure of it. And if he entered the monastery, the same would be true. He had to be ready, despite his age, to go with his troops if an enemy action threatened. After passing a year in this manner, he thought of a solution. In 1423, a provincial chapter was held at the Carmel in Lisbon. Father Alphonse, the Vicar General, came from Moira to preside. To the astonishment of the chapter, Nuno presented himself and asked permission to become a lay brother, nay, even less than a lay brother. To understand the magnitude of this move, the reader should understand that a lay brother is usually a servant in a religious community. In the Carmelite order, a lay brother is the one who waits on tables, cleans the house, tends the farm, cooks, washes, scrubs, binds broken books, fixes furniture and plumbing, hauls water and wood, tends the fire, takes orders from almost any priest in the house. Moreover, he takes his orders from the prior to do these things under pain of sin. It is not so much a drudgery as it is a complete submission of the will. Nuno knew this. He understood perfectly what the renunciation of his will would mean. He was binding himself to take orders to menial tasks, he who had given orders to an entire nation. Furthermore, as was mentioned, Nuno did not even ask to be a full lay brother, but a donato, as the Carmelites then called a brother who was not a full-fledged member of the community. A full-fledged lay brother took Solman vows and was really a member of the community, entitled to the respect of all as a real member of the First Order of Carmelites. Donato took only simple vows. He could leave whenever he wished, but as long as he was in the community, he was the least of the community. He was the least of the community and the servant of all. Nuno had to ask to be a donato because should enemies threaten the country, he would have to be ready to go with the troops. And despite the lowliness of such a state, that was what Nuno wanted, to be the servant of the servants of Mary. Father Alphonse and the definitors felt that the change would be too great for Nuno. They tried diplomatically to refuse. When Nuno wanted a definite answer, they decided to test his vocation. Word was sent to the king, and His Majesty immediately sent his own son, the Infante Don Duarte, heir to the throne, who, because of his many virtues, had been a special favorite of Nuno's. This attractive young knight, whom Nuno had greatly influenced at the royal court and on the boy's many visits to Nuno's own estates, had gained the name the Chaste. Don Duarte begged Nuno not to humiliate himself. In the name of the king and in the name of Portugal, he asked the Grand Knight to preserve his dignity, to remain a center around which the heart of the new Portugal might turn in a feeling of greatness, warmth, freedom. Is there any freedom, Nuno returned, greater than the freedom to serve God? And is there any freedom more complete than union with Him? Does He not free us from ties of money and property and selfishness, and avarice and pride and inconsistency? Is He not indeed the only true emancipator, who is free, who does not love God? And so, on August 15th, the feast of the Assumption, the anniversary of his knighthood and of his victories at Aljubarrota and at Ceuta, Don Nun Alvarez Pereira pronounced the three holy vows of religion. He, the Count of Aram, of Areolos, and of Barcelos, the master of 3 provinces of the kingdom, he had helped to establish the lord and baron of almost countless towns and castles under his command. The great majordomo of King John I and Grand Constable of Portugal despoiled himself at the feet of Mary of all his grandeur and was invested in the poor habit of a Carmelite friar. When the scapular was placed over his shoulders, he clasped it to his lips, and great tears of joy rolled down his weathered cheeks. The invincible, the unconquerable, had been overcome by his own lady. When he arose, stifling tears of tenderness, a powerful lord, noblest among the noble, had disappeared from this world. There stood in his stead Brother Nuno of St. Mary Carmelite. He was a little over 63 years of age. Lisbon was unspeakable with amazement. The Infante Don Duarte, is that where we were? I think so, page 145, maybe around here. Lisbon was unspeakable with amazement. The Infante Don Duarte even hurried to the monastery to ensure himself that it was not merely rumor. When he saw Nuno in the rough coarse cloth of the habit, he was torn between admiration and dismay for what he feared would happen to Portugal without Nuno at the Grand Constable. "At least, sire," the prince pleaded, "keep your title of Grand Constable. You know how our enemies fear your name. If you forsake the country, they will most assuredly fall upon us." Not without tenderness, Nuno rebuked the young prince for tempting him. He explained that he would wear his armor beneath his habit, not to be without its discomfiture, and as a warning to the enemies of Portugal that he would take his place at the head of the troops should they take up arms against her. "I am not even a lay brother, Don Duarte," said the aging, habit-clad general. "I'm only Donato, ready to come to the aid of my country if she should need me." The prince departed sorrowing, feeling that he in Portugal had lost a national figure, yet with a deep spiritual feeling that he could not quite define. Such was to be the reaction of the entire country. Brother Nuno, for his part, celebrated his profession by asking to be changed to a cell still poorer than his former one. A crucifix, hair cloths, and the usual Carmelite discipline hung on the wall. The bed was of boards covered with rough wool. In this extreme of poverty, blessed Nuno, who had all his life enjoyed the riches of the land, found new riches. He had never been so close to his lady. Just before taking the habit, Nuno gave the shield that he had carried in his battles to Father Gomez, the prior. The prophetic sword, tempered for him by the armorer of Santarem, was placed by the prior in the treasury of the convent, along with the scepter of the King of Castile and the precious reliquary which were taken at Aljubarrota. Nuno had always carried the reliquary on his breast. He attributed to it his miraculous escape at Valverde. It could not have been easy for the 63-year-old veteran to part with these last treasures. Soon he was taking part in the most menial tasks, without causing the slightest comment in the community. He seemed to fit. The idea of a grand knight with vast dominions was too distant from the white-haired brother emptying chambers and serving at the table. There were very likely some in the community who thought Nuno was grandstanding, and who made him feel the weight of their judgment. In the eyes of some of the world, Nuno might have been considered finally a failure, like the man who was voluntarily nailed to a cross. During the years that followed, if any of his fellow religious ever tried to spare him the more laborious or the more humble duties, he quietly protested that in the house of God all duties are great, and that he had not come there to escape fatigue. And, although he was usually meek under remarks, that he was a fake. Even though he had sometimes to keep his eyes lowered, at least they showed the blaze that sometimes flashed there despite himself. He would never tolerate the slightest sign of respect towards him, particularly with regard to the use of any of his previous titles. During these years, one of the priests who lived in the community was Father John Goncalves, who in his youth had served as an ordinary soldier in Nuno's great army. Every time that Brother Nuno met this particular priest, he not only kissed his scapular, which was a usual token of respect to a Carmelite priest, but whenever Father John reached out his hand to restrain Nuno, the humble lay brother also kissed his hand, and he did this with such difference that not even his enemies could misconstrue it. Father John, in turn, himself most saintly, always signed himself as the servant of the constable, feeling more humiliated than complimented by Nuno's respect of his priesthood. Almost day by day one could see the growth in Blessed Nuno's piety. He had been able to kneel in the middle of a raging battle and pray. Now in solitude, with all his mind and heart bent to prayer, he spent many hours lost in adoration before the sacrament he so loved. Each day, though not obliged, he said the divine office. Some say that he did this even before his profession. Each day he attained as many masses as possible. He attended as many masses as possible. Out of this nearness to God came an increasing desire to be detached even more from himself. Nuno longed to be always alone with God. He wanted to eat nothing. He wanted to take the discipline frequently. He was in love with God. Notwithstanding his advanced age, because of his wonderful physical condition, the prior saw fit to permit Nuno to fast to some extent. Because of his wonderful physical condition, the prior saw that it was fit for him to fast to some extent, and to take the discipline more often than the rule required. In other words, it goes into the understanding of, if we don't have enough food to feed everybody, probably the one that's most fit and healthy should go without and feed the ones that are about to die. Yeah, I mean, maybe not to that extent, but in general, I think that's the idea there. We are told that he often disciplined himself so strenuously that he caused the blood to run from the body that had never offended God. The change was not overnight. Perhaps if Nuno had begun his religious life with strenuous mortifications, he would not have gone far. But now he mortified himself, not because he felt that it was the thing to do, but because he wanted to do it. Now that he had a taste of union with God, he had a distaste for all things of earth. He was finally and completely in love. We'll pause there on page 149. I'm going to do an everything pickle card. This one? I can go pirate. A pirate with a pickle. Pirate pickle. On the oceans, long before pickleball, these were the robbers on ships. Good one. Thanks for the request. You're welcome. Thank you. Sure. The Real Mother Goose. It's one of our favorite nursery rhyme books. Page 62. Little Pussy. I like little Pussy, her coat is so warm, and if I don't hurt her, she'll do me no harm. So I'll not pull her tail, nor drive her away, but Pussy and I very gently will play. Sing a song of sixpence. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. Was not that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in the parlor, eating bread and honey. This maid was in the garden, hanging up the clothes, when down came a blackbird and snapped off her nose. One more. Tommy Tittlemouse. Little Tommy Tittlemouse lived in a little house. He caught fishes in other men's ditches. The Derby ram. As I was going to Derby all on a market day, I met the finest ram, sir, that ever was fed upon hay. Upon hay, upon hay, upon hay, I met the finest ram, sir, that ever was fed upon hay. The ram was fat behind, sir, this ram was fat before. The ram was 10 yards round, sir, indeed he was no more. No more, no more, no more. This ram was 10 yards round, sir, indeed he was no more. The horns that grew on his head, sir, they were so wondrous high. As I've been plainly told, sir, they reached up to the sky. The sky, the sky, the sky. As I've been plainly told, sir, they reached up to the sky. The tail that grew from his back, sir, was 6 yards and an ell, and it was sent to Derby to toll the market bell. The bell, the bell, the bell, and it was sent to Derby to toll the market bell. The hobby horse. I had a little hobby horse, and it was a dapple gray. Its head was made of pea straw. Its tail was made of hay. I sold it to an old woman for a copper groat, and I'll not sing my song without another coat. The mulberry bush. Here we go round the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush. Here we go round the mulberry bush on a cold and frosty morning. This is the way we wash our hands, wash our hands, wash our hands. This is the way we wash our hands on a cold and frosty morning. Just don't bring God into it. This is the way we wash our clothes, wash our clothes, wash our clothes. This is the way we wash our clothes on a cold and frosty morning. This is the way we go to school, go to school, go to school. This is the way we go to school on a cold and frosty morning. This is the way we come out of school, come out of school, come out of school. This is the way we come out of school. This is the way we come out of school on a cold and frosty morning. Young lambs to sell. If I'd as much money as I could tell, I never could cry, young lambs to sell, young lambs to sell, young lambs to sell. I never would cry, young lambs to sell. You're welcome. No, I'm not tired at all. I slept really good. That's probably just the lighting and the way I have my hair. You know, I actually feel really well rested. Thank you. You're welcome. That's a really fast blinker. It's like warp speed. No, the blinker's already gone by. I was just showing you the weather. It's a nice day. All right. I'm thinking some rice soup. It seems like a really nice day for some rice soup to go with our stuffing. Yeah, I made lots of stuffing yesterday. Yeah, I made it the day before too, but I didn't make a lot. Yesterday I made a lot, so I have leftovers today. I love leftover stuffing. I might make some cranberry sauce. Hold on, I gotta check if I have enough cranberries. I probably have enough to make a small sauce. Oh, yes, I do. I have enough to make my small sauce. I'm gonna make a little bit of cranberry sauce to go with that. Be good. You're welcome. Thank you.